No one anticipated that Kirk Frost's unexpected and deeply personal comment about Yandy Smith would cause such a violent, emotional, and public outburst, although tensions between the two men had been boiling before. Witnesses say Mendeecees lost it when Kirk made fun of Yandy's role as a mother. By the time the cameras rolled, the whole cast was stunned. The Love and Hip Hop set, which began as just another scene, turned into a ticking time bomb that no one saw coming. The now leaked and extensively circulated video has shown fans a side of Mendeecees that they have never seen before. How did it get this far? And can this relationship ever be repaired? Is the question that now haunts the entire fan base. Mendy knows that he didn't hold back with his words, his feelings, or his response. One of the most heated moments in the history of Love and Hip Hop, according to insiders. Mendeecees refused to put up with Yandy's name being not only disparaged, but also dragged. No. One had predicted the kind of explosion that was about to happen, but the Love and Hip Hop crew knew. The stakes were high as they assembled for yet another dramatic scene. Shoot. Although the public had never seen anything like this, Kirk Frost and Mendeecees Harris, two of the show's most controversial characters, had been at odds for weeks, and their antagonism had been said to be growing on set. As soon as the cameras rolled, what had begun as another rehearsed argument quickly turned into something far more passionate. Innocently enough, it began with Kirk and Mendeecees filming a scene meant to discuss the future of the family. But this was not what Kirk, ever the provocateur, was prepared for. Kirk's remarks about Yandy Mendeecees' wife shocked everyone during what was supposed to be a lighthearted conversation. I'm only stating that Kirk started to attempt to sound casual. Maybe Yandy wouldn't have so many problems with her kids if she didn't act like a martyr and constantly play the victim. In a couple of seconds, Mendy's face went from bewilderment to anger as the words lingered in the air like poison. They felt something was wrong, and the crew, accustomed to the usual theatrics, felt nervous now. Normally calm, he was clearly shook with anger as he tried to process the news. Everyone knew how much Mendeecees valued Yandy, so the insult was mild. It was a direct attack on not just Yandy's parenting, but on everything she stood for. Mendeecees was not going to ignore Kirk's offense. It felt like everyone in the room was holding their breath, waiting for the inevitable answer. Mendeecees' voice was eerily quiet at first, but beneath it was simmering anger. Mendeecees yelled. Rather than give Kirk the satisfaction of a back-and-forth argument, he stepped forward with enraged eyes. "You don't get to talk about Yandy like that," he said. The other people in the room looked at each other nervously, knowing that things were going to get ugly. As if to further aggravate Mendeecees, Kirk, the originator, smiled. With a tone full of cynicism, Kirk shot back. He slapped Kirk in the face with such force that everyone gasped in shock. A cry of surprise went through the group as the smack reverberated across the room. What was even more astounding to everyone was the pure emotion that fueled the physical act. Mendy noted on set that his character had never been more unrestrained, and the cameras captured every moment of it. Mendeecees smacked Kirk's cheek, and Kirk remained still for a long time, his hand hovering near the place. This time, the slap wasn't over a meaningless quarrel, but he wasn't prepared for it to go this far. He was used to playing the villain and making things theatrical. Mendeecees would stop at nothing to protect his family, his pride, and his love for Yandy. Suddenly, after filming the entire production, the camera crew had to deal with someone who was acting hostilely toward Rashida in an effort to get more attention and TV time. Others were questioning why the men had remained silent in the face of such serious accusations. Things quickly grew darker, with rumors of covert meetings, covert communications, and even the tension grew over the next few days, with everything in damage control mode now. Yandy began contacting close friends and relatives to try to find out more information. She wanted to know why Mendeecees weren't being more transparent, and she was desperate for answers. Although no one knew what the video evidence was, several fans claimed that Rhea had it to back up her claims. According to another, she had pictures or text conversations showing that the Mendeecees acknowledged staying with her overnight, as he remained silent. More people started to question whether he was hiding something or if there was still more to the story. Rhea, on the other hand, was the one who started the chaos. She knew what she had done and the drama she had produced, and she was enjoying every moment of it. With every new tweet, she showed her grasp of the subject and kept the audience in mind. She also fanned social media roamers by stating, if they want the truth, they'll get it. Usually accustomed to drama, the Love and Hip Hop cast was now his response was even more evasive than the last. But he ultimately spoke up again when the pressure on male DCs increased. He said the truth will always come to light. While some members felt compelled to react to the growing commotion, others remained silent. But one thing seemed to be agreed upon by all. This was no ordinary dispute. The shocking revelation was not merely another argument between the performers. It had the power to destroy relationships and families. Everyone was able to watch everything in real time, and it was intimate. It was more important than ever because Rhea had severely damaged the already fragile relationship between Yandy and males. Who was telling the truth? Who was trying to control the situation for their own benefit, and what was truly happening all piqued interest. Rashida's assertion was only beginning to have implications, and it was impossible to foretell how this story would unfold. Gave individuals the freedom to understand the message any way they saw fit. Was he exposing something or trying to hide the truth? Fans were eagerly awaiting the next jigsaw piece, wondering if Rashida and Yandy would fight or if Mendeecees would finally come clean. However, one thing was certain. The drama was far from over, and the world was watching every move. The controversy surrounding Rashida's shocking admission of spending the night with Mendeecees only intensified as the days passed. There were a lot of heated discussions on social media, and every new post or comment seemed to fuel the fires. There was a lot of tension in the air, and it was clear that this problem would not go away. It was becoming a major show. Yandy, who was still doubting Rashida's claim, began acting on her own initiative, determined to find the truth. But the more she looked into it, the more confused the situation became. She tried to get a direct response from him, but his answers were evasive and vague. He told her over the phone, "We'll talk when the time is right," which made Yandy feel even more alone and irritated. It seemed as if he had something to hide, and the longer he remained silent, the more she felt like he was avoiding her, which only made their distance grow. However, Mendeecees continued to be evasive, and the more Rita's claim was questioned, the more cryptic his behavior became. Yandy's feelings were mixed. She was hurt, angry, and confused all at once. How could Mendeecees let this happen without confronting it head-on? She had always been there for him and supported him no matter what, but now it seemed like he was ignoring her when she needed him the most, and their relationship seemed to be on the verge of ending because the drama was consuming all of her thoughts, and her emotions were fully entangled with the crisis. He tweeted one evening, "Sometimes the truth is harder than the lies," which sent his supporters into a frenzy, but they felt it was fitting. As the situation developed, people swiftly took sides because they believed Rashida's version of events, while other fans backed her and accused Mendeecees of lying or hiding the truth, citing his silence as evidence of guilt. Was he confessing to Rashida's affair, or were his ambiguous remarks really meant to perplex everyone? A leaked video surfaced just as things were starting to get out of hand, and Rashida was quickly criticized for using controversy to get attention, saying that she is only interested in her 15 minutes of fame. Mendeecees is shady. If he truly had nothing to hide, he would have rejected Rita's claim immediately. An admirer said that if he truly cared about Yandy, he would have stopped this. But instead, he's letting it go on. Despite its briefness, the video was enough to spark a flurry of rumors. and admirers scrutinized every frame for clues that something more was going on. Was it taken as proof that the accusation was true? Or did it simply show to friends hanging together innocuously? The mystery was only the video, and it appeared that everyone had an opinion. The video appeared to show Men and Rashida together at a hotel, showing the two laughing and talking, clearly at ease with another person. We'll talk about it. Some admirers said it didn't prove anything, while others said that Mendeecees and Rashida's connection in the video was clear and seemed to go beyond simple friendship. Naturally, Yandy was devastated when she saw the footage. She was shocked by what she was seeing, and Roz's claims seemed to have some truth too. If the video was real? However, Yandy didn't make snap decisions because she was determined to hear the whole story. She contacted Mendeecees again and asked for an explanation. But he sidestepped her questions and didn't give any conclusive answers. While the rest of the love and hip-hop symbol was feeling the heat, fans began to question the authenticity of the video, with some speculating that it was staged or part of a larger scheme to manipulate the public. While others speculated that Mendeecees and Rashida had been secretly dating for months, and that was just the beginning, he said in a cold, detached tone. The drama escalated as the men remained silent. The suspense was heightened by the suggestion that Mendeecees and Rashida had been keeping something from everyone. Was there an affair going on here? Or were there only two people involved in an incident that went out of control? When news outlets began to cover the story, the abrupt disclosure of the love triangle became the talk of the town. The hip-hop and love producers were working frantically behind the scenes to deal with the fallout, because they knew that although this drama might draw large audiences, it also threatened to destroy the relationships between the show's main actors. Would Mendeecees and Yandy's marriage end as a result of the controversy? Or could they handle it? What role would Rashida play in all of this? Fans wanted to know the truth about what really happened between Mendeecees and Yandy, but Kirk knew deep down that he had pushed Mendeecees too far, and now there was no going back. As the situation progressed, more information came to light, including rumors about Mendeecees' past, relationships with other women, and even his involvement in questionable business dealings. It was clear that this controversy would affect everyone connected to the Love and Hip Hop franchise, not just Mendeecees and Yandy. Yandy's relationship with Mendeecees was suffering now that her family was split up. And even though he had offered to help, she couldn't get rid of the notion that the frequent arguments, taunts, and public displays were too much to handle. Is it really worth it? Looking into the glass, she asked herself. The cast was in a state of chaos after the slap. And as the team got ready to film the next episode, the tension seemed to increase every day. The truth was that nobody knew what would happen next. After weeks of meticulous editing and storytelling for each episode, the producers were back on set with a lot of work ahead of them. The world was watching, and nobody knew what would happen next. What had begun as a heated argument and physical altercation between Mendeecees and Kirk had escalated into a full-scale struggle for control, not only within the family but throughout the entire love and hip-hop universe. They knew they had a chance to capture the drama and raw emotion that reality TV fans wanted. But they also understood the delicate balance they had to maintain. They knew that showing the uncut footage of the altercation would be dangerous. It would be explosive, but it could backfire. Would viewers appreciate the authenticity, or would they feel that the situation had been taken too far for men? He hadn't anticipated things to get as bad as they did. And when Kirk insulted Yandy, it felt a wave of rage unlike anything he'd ever experienced. Something he had never felt before. Mendeecees wanted to defend his actions, but he couldn't deny that things were getting out of control. The public's reaction had been overwhelming, and while the slap may have been a moment off defense, it was also a turning point for Mendeecees, who couldn't just let Kirk walk all over him, especially when the remarks were so personal. He clenched his fists and said, "I love Yandy, and I wasn't going to let him disrespect her. Not again." although he had always been protective of Yandy. Couldn't help but wonder if he had just given Kirk and the producers exactly what they wanted. More drama, more spectacle. Did I just feed into their game? Mendy asked aloud, pacing the room. It's part of this circus, but now it feels like I'm just another puppet. Kirk was attempting to brush off the incident, but he knew deep down that he couldn't avoid the fallout. I didn't mean for it to go that far, Kirk said, shaking his head as he spoke to Jonathan. I was just speaking my mind. Kirk had taken pride in starting the drama and was now dealing with the fallout from it. But now that the roles had been reversed, he was finding it difficult to maintain his composure. I didn't think he would really do that. Kirk did his best to minimize the situation, but the damage had already been done. And Mendeecees made it clear that he wouldn't allow anyone to disparage his family or the tension. This was now visible on the set and among the performers. Even people who had known Kirk well, such as Rashida, were beginning to doubt his intentions. Kirk, you've crossed the line, Rashida declared angrily. Rashida couldn't help but notice the pain in her eyes as Kirk attempted to explain himself, saying, "You've always pushed buttons, but this is different." She had witnessed how much people loved Yandy, and now she was beginning to understand who Kirk truly was. Some fans were less sympathetic, but Kirk got what he deserved. One fan commented in a tweet, "Kirk has been acting like a bully for years." Another fan added, "I understand that Kirk was out of line, but Mendeecees went too far. It's only a performance. Violence is never the solution." Fans were unable to stop discussing the shocking slap, debating whether Kirk had pushed him too far or whether Mendeecees was correct. It's no wonder that Mendeecees broke. Comments about the altercation were all over social media and entertainment outlets, even though Yandy was thankful that Mendeecees had defended her. She was trying to deal with the stress of it all and knew that such a public display would have negative effects. "This isn't what I wanted," Yandy told Amina in a tearful voice. "I don't want my family to be torn apart by this show. I just want us to be happy to be left alone. But now it feels like everything we've built is collapsing." Everyone knew that Kirk and Mendeecees' tension was far from over, and that the next time they had to fight would be in front of the world, not just the cameras, as the cast prepared for the next big scene backstage. Their relationship was obviously strained, and Mendeecees was trying her hardest to keep it together. But the slap had set off a series of events that neither of them could control. And Yandy knew that the producers were already planning to use the situation for more drama, and that her vulnerability, suffering, and the conflict in her family would be used for entertainment. With millions of viewers, it was impossible to predict how this drama would end, and the next episode promised more fireworks, shocking twists, and raw emotions. But no one knew if the cast could handle the fallout. Kirk and Mendeecees' tension was about to reach a new boiling point, and the producers had been meticulously planning the next confrontation, knowing full well that it would be the moment viewers had been waiting for. The set was bustling with activity as everyone got ready for the next round of filming, but no one could have predicted just how explosive the situation would get. He hated the drama, but he also knew that he couldn't back down because Kirk had crossed a line and there was no turning back now. Men who were still visibly upset from the altercation with Kirk were pacing back and forth in his dressing room, unable to shake the feeling that everything he had worked for was on the line. His reputation, his family, his future in the industry were all at risk because of the actions that had been taken. Men pondered, "I have to defend my family," which entails confronting Kirk, and asked himself, "If I don't, what sort of guy am I?" A tornado of fear, rage, and fury swirled through his emotions. Although he knew he couldn't allow Kirk to get away with what he had said, he also knew that making things more dramatic wouldn't make it any better. The goal had shifted from merely keeping Yandy safe to demonstrating to everyone that he was not a target of bullying and that he needed to stand up for what he believed in. Kirk, meanwhile, remained in disbelief. "I never thought Mondays would actually hit me." Kirk, who has always been a bit of a hothead, told Jonathan in a low, regretful Voice, I didn't think it would escalate like this. Although Kirk was trying to maintain his composure and his hands were shaking while he spoke, the guilt was eating away at him from the bottom of his heart. After the slap, the days that followed were a blur of interviews, media attention, and angry fan mail. Usually, he was the one causing the chaos and the drama. So this was a new situation for him. He wasn't prepared to accept complete responsibility for the mess he had created. But he knew he had pushed guys too far. You have to own this, Kirk, Jonathan said firmly. You weren't ready to take full responsibility for the mess he had created. Mendeecees didn't just snap out of nowhere. You've been poking at him for weeks, maybe even months. This was a long time coming, explained Kirk. Jonathan's expression clouded as his remarks rang true. He'd always been good at laying blame and manipulating events to fit his purpose, but now he was beginning to realize that he couldn't avoid the truth. Because of his actions, they had come to this point, and there was no escaping the repercussions. Kirk whispered, I just hope he's not planning something worse when we get on set today. As he combed through his hair, can take this any further. Everyone was aware that the producers were eager to record the next major altercation, but nobody knew what would happen when Mendes and Kirk were in the same room. The rest of the cast had been told to step aside and let the two guys handle their problems alone. But in practice, no one could take their eyes off what was happening in front of them. The set was tight, and the crew was on edge because today might be the day that everything either calmed down or burst again. Mendes and Kirk were positioned on opposite ends of the set while the crew prepared for the scene. Both men's features were tightly packed with emotion. Mendeecees had been holding in his anger for days, and Kirk was obviously nervous about facing Mendes once more, despite his earlier efforts to downplay it. Now that the time had come, there was no turning back. Really? You think I'll just forget what you said about Yandy? Mendes asked in a low, threatening voice as he looked at Kirk. Observe Kirk's response. Kirk moved uncomfortably, but he persisted. I was just voicing my thoughts when he responded. I didn't mean to disrespect her. His voice was shaking but firm. Although I have feelings, you are not the only one. Mendes, you think I should just relax every time you act like the hero? I haven't worked in this field long enough to put up with being patronized, even by you. Kirk's comments were tinged with bitterness, and his voice was naturally hostile. Kirk's tone was one of rage. In a fierce reply, Mendeecees' hands clenched at his sides, his voice growing louder, his anger evident. These days, it's not just about Yandy. It's also about respect and boundaries, which you can't cross. You've crossed the line, Kirk. You've always thought you could get away with whatever you wanted, but not anymore, the producers realized. They needed to record every moment of the rapidly developing crisis as the cameras rolled. The entire set was quiet, save for the heated debate that was taking place. The ferocity of Kirk's speech gave the impression that he could attack Mendeecees once more, but security intervened swiftly and broke them up. The producers were alerted as soon as they suspected a breach. You want respect, Mendeecees? Maybe you should. Start respecting me. Kirk spat in a hard, contemptuous voice. I'm not scared of you. You think I'm scared of you? Kirk and Mindy were escorted to opposing corners of the set as the crew made a valiant effort to diffuse the tension. Both men were obviously upset, and the air was heavy with unresolved anger. The drama was only getting started. Following the altercation, the studio was quiet, with no one moving. The actors chatting among themselves and the producers gathering to determine whether to go ahead with the shoot or stop it altogether. What had begun as a verbal dispute had developed into something far more complicated. It appeared that there was no going back once the boundaries had been set. The network executives had been watching everything closely through the control room stream. Totally, Mendeecees sat on a couch in the corner, gasping for air and looking at the ground as though he were attempting to calm a raging rage. Kirk hardly touched the bottle of water being brought to him across the stage as one of them. A lady with years of experience handling talent turmoil leaned back and stated quietly, "This is too real. We need to step in before it becomes something." The mental struggle between the two men had created an irrevocable rift despite their physical isolation. The two men had gone too far. We are unable to solve it. As the interval went on, Yandy arrived on set. She had been told shortly after the explosion and had rushed there, not knowing what she would find. When she walked in and saw Mendeecees sitting alone with his head in his hands, her heart sank. "The fans are going to devour this." "It's gold," said another executive. "Do we really want to put out the fire now that the leaked tape has already fired up the internet?" Yandy remarked quietly, "I tried to ignore it, but it felt like he was trying to break me. But you can't allow him to win by bringing you down to his level." Mendy said, "I know how much you've been holding in," seeing her anguish in his eyes and still coming at me with things he didn't have the right to say. "That's what he wants to show, that you're just like him, but you're not." The conversation was captured on a nearby camera, and editors would later debate whether or not to use it because everyone is acting as if I'm the one who is out of line because I had the opportunity to do so but chose not to. Rashida didn't mince words. "You've been causing him drama for weeks, Kirk. You've been pushing him until he broke because you were jealous that he was getting more screen time. And now you're attempting to make me appear like the bad guy once more." Kirk was talking to Rashida on the phone, complaining about everything rather than thinking in the last scene. Kirk and Mendeecees were to be filmed independently, responding to the same set of questions in a confessional fashion. The filmmakers decided to try one more take that day. It was a last-ditch effort to prevent further disruption and rescue the episode. Mindy was awake first. He took a seat in the chair. Kirk was momentarily stunned and speechless when Rashida was right, which made him confront things like the potential that he had provoked an unnecessary argument or that his need for attention had finally gotten out of control. The interviewer took a big breath and looked into the lens before saying, "When someone disrespects your wife, it's not just a TikTok moment, it's real life." "Yes, I reacted maybe too much. Perhaps not enough, but I reacted like any other genuine guy would when Kirk attacked Yandy as though she were a plot element, claiming that she was my family and my ride or die." Later, Kirk took over, stating, "I never intended to come for Yandy, but it got twisted. Yeah, Mendeecees man. He's got a temper and he's always had one. Perhaps we both allowed ourselves to be forced into unpleasant circumstances by the cameras. Everyone realized by the end of the video that the drama was far from finished, that the apology was insufficient, that the tension was still present, and above all that the outside world had heard about it and was already picking sides. Celebrities started to remark on videos of the slap, the yelling, and even Yandy consoling Mendeecees when they went viral. Some said Mendeecees was being too harsh, while others supported him for standing up for his wife. Reaction channels, blogs, and gossip websites looked at every moment of the news was devastating. And Kirk felt like he was being used as a scapegoat for drama that the producers had always promoted, while Mendy felt like he was being punished for standing up for his wife. Mendeecees went live that night telling his fans directly, "They can try to cut me out of the show, but they won't cut me." The show's official account announced that Kirk and Mendeecees had been temporarily suspended from filming due to ongoing conflict and potential liability issues, and that their scenes would be reviewed, and the reunion special restructured without them. Neither man was willing to accept the suspension in a quiet manner. "They forced me to play the villain, and now they want to act shocked when the story gets messy." He added, "Don't believe everything you see on Tail. I've been doing this for a long time, and trust me, none of it's what it seems." As both men continued to speak out, fans became even more divided, with some demanding that Kirk be kicked off the show permanently, while preparing their next course of action. Behind the scenes, the network stayed mute and let the tempest unfold online. One thing was clear, despite the confusion: the distinction between reality and reality TV has been formally blurred. The harm was done, but the drama was far from over. Everyone was stunned by what transpired behind the scenes. What began as a straightforward argument descended into a full-fledged emotional outburst that exposed the more sinister realities of celebrity. Devotion and the price of defending individuals you care about. Mendeecees had to accept accountability for his use of violence. Everyone is wondering if this will be the final appearance of Kirk and the Mendeecees on the show. Is the damage already too big, or will the producers give in to fan pressure and bring them back? Is this the beginning of Yandy's problems, or will she forgive the network for what they permitted to occur? Although Mendy says choice to defend Yandy may have lost him his place on the show, many saw it as evidence that his love is more important than any narrative point. Kirk's conflict between sorrow and pride only made things worse. What do you think about Mendeecees being taken out of the spotlight for good? Did Mendeecees do the was Kirk right to defend Yandy? Or did he overreact, and should Kirk be held responsible for initiating the altercation? Please share your ideas in the space provided for comments below. We're reading everything. Or did he share everyone else's rapture of the moment? If you want to keep up with this narrative and all of its future twists, be sure to click the like button, turn on notifications, and subscribe to the channel. We assure you that this is simply the you don't want to miss what happens, since the uncensored drama is only getting more heated.